My biology role model is Francis Collins. Collins was born on April 15, 1950. He lived in a farmhouse and was homeschooled by his mother until 6th grade. His mother's enthusiasm for teaching led him to become interested in science at a very young age. He earned his B.S. from the University of Virginia and his M.S. and Ph.D. from Yale. While attending Yale, Collins took a biochemistry course that sprouted his interest in genetics. As a result, he later attended the University of North Carolina and earned his M.D. Collins is now a geneticist, and he is currently researching translational science, which is the practice of converting scientific discoveries to medical advances. He was part of research teams that discovered disease genes such as cystic fibrosis, neurofibromatosis, and Huntington chorea. He was a leader of the International Human Genome Project, and he has been the director of the National Institutes of Health since 2009. The next step in his research is using the information on disease genes to diagnose, treat, and possibly prevent these genetic diseases. An example of this is the drug Kalydeco, which was developed to treat cystic fibrosis. Collins was able to identify the CFTR gene as the source of the disease, and this information was used to develop Kalydeco, which functions by keeping the CFTR gate open longer on the surface of cells. In the midst of all his schooling and research, Collins has found time for some pretty unique hobbies. These include riding a Harley-Davidson motorcycle and playing guitar in a folk rock band called The Directors. This band is made up of a group of scientists from the National Institutes of Health. As the director of the NIH, this past year Collins has been researching the coronavirus. He was a crucial part of organizing ACTIV, which stands for Accelerating COVID-19 Therapeutic Interventions and Vaccines. As a result of this program, for the first time ever, trials of antivirals on coronavirus were carried out. Collins says that the information gained from these trials will help improve the world's response if another coronavirus pandemic occurs, which he says is very likely. Collins' most recent work was published on February 18, 2021, through an article titled South Africa Study Shows Power of Genomic Surveillance Amid COVID-19 Pandemic. In this paper, Collins discusses how genomic surveillance was used to analyze samples of SARS-CoV-2 in South Africa and determined the evolution and spread that the virus had undergone. The surveillance revealed that there were at least 42 variants of COVID-19 in South Africa during the first 6 months of the pandemic. Aside from the pandemic, he has also been doing research on type 1 diabetes. On September 21, 2020, he published an article titled Insulin-Producing Organoids Offer Hope for Treating Type 1 Diabetes. In this article, he explains how his lab and others are creating human isolate-like organoids, or HILOs, which connect as pancreatic tissue and make insulin for people with diabetes. These organoids are produced from pluripotent stem cells, which are retrieved from adult skin or blood cells and grown in a lab dish. The HILOs were able to successfully produce insulin and be transplanted into mice after they were grown in a gelatinous chamber that contained actual pancreatic cells growing along with them. Despite Collins being one of the most famous scientists in the world, I actually did not know that he was the director of the NIH. The reason I selected him as my role model is because of the research he did on the CFTR gene that causes cystic fibrosis. 2 of my brothers suffer from cystic fibrosis, and I aspire to one day do research like Dr. Collins that will help to develop further treatments for this disease and others. Additionally, I identify with him because he is a Christian, and one of his goals is to prove to people that science and religion are not mutually exclusive. He even wrote a book called The Language of God, in which he explains his belief in theistic evolution. His religion influenced his morals while researching the human genome as well. He was very nervous about the possible ethical implications that would result from access to the human genome. As a result, in 2009, he supported the passage of federal laws that set guidelines regarding how people's genomes can be used. I aspire to one day be a scientist like Francis Collins, a scientist who is passionate, enjoys life through fun hobbies, practices their faith, and contributes to research that can save people from diseases.